everyone, and welcome to the Toasted Podcast. We are so very happy to be here today. Nick Farnoli. And happy to welcome Dr. Myers-Small to be with us today, which is really exciting. And, of course, you know Margie. Margie Wright.
In the house.
I wasn't sure. Margie, you know what's funny is like you can't do hand signals when you're recording on Zoom. Or on we're using Riverside actually, but when you record on Riverside, so it's kind of funny to cue people through audio. You know, it's an interesting skill.
We can do that. We can start one. People watching on YouTube will be like, "What are they doing?" But we are so happy to have you here with us, Dr.
Two blinks means your turn.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So Dr. Lesli Myers-Small is here with us today. We are so excited. We've been having so much fun before we started recording, just catching up and talking and, hearing about Thanksgiving traditions. It's just been really fun. So thank you for persevering through some technical stuff in the beginning and to be here with us and making time in your busy schedule for us. We are very, very grateful, and we cannot wait to have this conversation and share this conversation with our Toasted Podcast family.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I feel very welcomed.
Oh, well, you're so sweet. So Nick, I'm going to toss it to you because you know me, I'll start going. Blah, blah, blah. So go ahead, Nick.
Well, I was kind of thinking it might be kind of funny to, or not funny, but interesting for folks to hear a little bit about your Thanksgiving tradition, Dr. Smalls, or Dr. Myers-Smalls, excuse me, because it was an interesting spread on your table, and I'm always thinking about food, so that in particular stuck out to me. So I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So even though I'm an educator by trade, that's what pays the bills per se, I love to cook, and I have cooked ever since I was holding on to my maternal grandmother's apron strings and watching, and then I elevated to being able to hold the bowl steady, then I could stir, and then it went to being able to prepare the full-blown dish. But Thanksgiving and Christmas in particular, and those are the holidays that I share that I celebrate, just really meant a lot. My mom was the youngest of 10, and my father was the oldest of 9. So you can imagine that when we had family gatherings, they were quite large. And so Thanksgiving and Christmas was a time that we all got together, my aunts and uncles and their children and their children. And so I'm used to cooking a lot of food and having a lot of food at the table. I'm from the North. I was born in Stowe, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. And my husband grew up in Chicago, but both of his parents are from the South, from Louisiana. And so when the two of us got together, I made some assumptions, and so did he, that we would have a pretty fluid Thanksgiving. And lo and behold, he brought his Cajun and Creole background, and I brought my Boston traditions. But they meld so wonderfully together. And my husband just said to me again the other day, he said, I love when we're in the kitchen together because we're like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. We just flow.
It's beautiful.
And it just works. So he's making gumbo, and he's making chitlins, or if you want to say it a little more proper, chitterlings, which I don't like. I've tried them. I just don't like them.
What are they? I've heard of them, but what exactly are chitlins?
They're pig intestines.
Okay.
Oh.
Pig intestines. But you know what? He cleans them incredibly well, and he seasons and flavors them amazing. But I have tried them. It's just not a taste for me. But we have mac and cheese and collard greens, ham, gumbo, which if you've ever had gumbo, that's a meal in itself.
Yes,
let's just put it there. Chicken, shrimp, crab, and andouille sausage. And then you have the holy trinity, which is the celery, peppers, and onions. And you have to put that over rice. And we've had mashed potatoes and candy jams, and I made sweet potato pies, and my grandmother's pound cake, and German chocolate cake, because that's my husband's favorite. So we had food galore.
Oh my goodness.
It was
I can't wait to come to Thanksgiving next year. I'll just blend right in. I'll just blend.
You
Won't
would.
know I'm there.
I'm telling you, the more the merrier. The more the merrier for us.
Nick will make his specialty. Nick makes a turducken. So that is his specialty. So he will
I
have
have
a
never
duck
had
inside
one
a
of those
turkey.
before.
He does it.
Yeah, I did it. Well, I did it this year, and I did it a couple of times. This year, I have to say, it came out pretty darn great. I was really impressed.
Okay, all right.
The only thing
awesome.
the one thing I would say is, if I did it again, I would take the breasts out of the duck, because the duck is the inner. It's a turkey with a chicken inside it, and then a duck inside that. Or you could do it the other way around. But either way you do it, the best part of duck is really like the rendered duck skin, right? So like the crispy skin, and it doesn't really happen on the inside of a turducken. So I would take the skin off and just use the breast if I had to do it again. But I'm not complaining. It was really great. We ate the last of it actually yesterday. So
sounds awesome.
Yeah,
nice. That's it.
And I want to speak to I've never had chitlins, but in my family we did tripe, so there's zero judgment here, you know. So that's the
Now I've tried tripe, and it's not bad. Again, I don't ever want to say I don't like something without trying it.
Right.
Except for, I don't think I'll try Rocky Mountain Oysters. I'm not going to try that.
I don't know what that is either, but I'm scared by the idea of it.
Bull's testicles.
Yeah, I'm out on that.
I don't think I want to try that. No, thank you. Are you allowed to say that on air?
Yes, you can say whatever you want.
Hey, cheers, everybody! Woo! The post-Thanksgiving Toasted Podcast. It's a culinary delight.
I got Nick to cry.
I am crying.
You win. Dr. Lesli Myers-Small gets Nick to cry.
That is the funniest. That is the funniest thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, so. I'm not trying this. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No. No.
That's really funny. I my favorite part of tripe had nothing to do with the tripe. It was that they would serve it in this, you'd get a giant bowl of tripe, which is basically like a tomato sauce or whatever.
And that broth is yummy.
So great. But the best part is actually the bread, right? So they serve it with bread. I'm like, I'll eat, any excuse to eat bread is okay with me. So.
Yeah, I can't do any of that stuff. No, thank you.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate the cultural heritage and the work and love that goes into it, especially the amount of effort that goes into some. But I'm like,
absolutely,
no, thank you, no, thank you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the entrails. That's a lot of work, and a lot of preparation. So
it is.
Wow, that was. I actually am a little sore from laughing this much to start this show. So
good,
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Good.
Let's know each other. I think through the University of Rochester, right? That's our common thread connection. Yeah, that's for myself and Leslie. That's our connection.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were in that one. It was like a think tank thing that we did together when they brought us to talk about the Ed Leadership Program and how to improve it and all of that. From the different groups and things like that. And at the time, you were at Brockport, and at the time, I was at Hanoi. And we got to spend a day going from chart paper to chart paper and sharing ideas and talking. And I was just like, I love this woman. This is like great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Margie and I were talking. I actually did the same thing, but mine was virtual. So you guys were actually there in person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Like
mine was fine, but
and our Mr. Sketch markers and sniffing them, getting the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. I like the cinnamon one, and I don't like the green apple one.
My favorite's cherry.
Is it? Cherry. You like that one? I love Mr. Sketch markers. That was the first thing when I started at my new gig in Fredonia. Christine Slagle, who is the secretary to the superintendent, sweetest person in the world. She's like, we'll order you anything you need for your office. I'm like, can I get like the big pack of Mr. Sketch? That was what I wanted first. It's like, I have, that and some new Sharpies,
Yeah.
Got to do the important work.
I love that question. My, the department secretary at Finger Lakes Community College was like, so what do you need for supplies? And I was like, I need like the cheapest Bic pens you can find and some Post-it notes and paper clips. And she looked at me and started to laugh. She's like, we already have those things. And I was like, okay.
Love it.
Yeah. Those are my note supplies.
Yeah, I
All right,
prefer
so
notebook.
yeah, we've already been there.
He was like teasing me on a previous episode about having a notebook while he had his little pieces of paper, but we digress.
Scrap paper, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What is it that you would like to share? We like to have the conversation be open. We would say join the conversation, but it's really, we this is such an open-ended topic of failure, of turning it around, of rising through, of the superpower, of the feelings and the experiences that go along with it. And like we say, we've all been toasted. So what experience or story or would you just like to share with us and with those listening? Because we all just learn from each other and we just gain so much strength from community and from the collective is what we like to say. And so we want people to be able to hear whatever it is you want to share with us. I know we're excited because it's just always,
Sure.
there's such a bond in sharing stories.
Yeah. So, I'll start my commentary by sharing just the very opening lines from a gospel song that I love. And every time I hear it, you have songs that just emotionally do something to you. And this one does it for me. It's one of it, and it goes like this. It says, "I've had some good days. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and I've had some sleepless nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days and I won't complain." And that's the name of the song. I Won't Complain.
That's beautiful.
And that song, just for people who don't know, it's by Reverend Paul Jones. And that song really describes my leadership journey. The late Malcolm X said something really poignant, and he said the Black woman is one of the most disrespected, right? And it has been difficult at times during my journey, right? I've had situations that have been very difficult and very challenging, and certainly my latest situation was painful. And I think what made it so difficult was it was so public and played out in the public eye. And a lot of people knew this, but if you didn't know me, you didn't know this. I lost my mom in February.
I'm so sorry.
And my mom and I were so close. And I loved her more than life. And I look just like her. I sound like her. When I go back to her hometown, people are like, "You have to be Clara Mills' daughter," or somehow related to her. And so I know for me, when my mom passed away, I didn't really practice healthcare like I should have. I went right back to work. I only took, about a week off. And it really was very challenging for me. But I have to tell you, my last role as superintendent in the Rochester City School District was absolutely my dream job. I had always wanted to do that. My career, when I left the U of R grad school, and I actually finished my master's thesis in my office at the then John Marshall High School. I was a high school counselor. And to go from high school counselor all the way to superintendent is a feat in itself, right? Because
yes, it is.
A lot of superintendents, more times than not, have not been former school counselors. They've been former teachers. They have not been previously. They're typically not female, right? It's a male-dominated profession.
80%.
Yeah. And even more dominated by white or Caucasian, right? Yep. It's not dominated by African American, Asian, Latinx, etc. So I was so honored when I took that role and I took that post. And as I look back over the situation, it was really hard. I mean, when I interviewed with the board and secured the position after the interviews, I didn't meet my full board in person until I think 9 or 10 months later. Like, we were always on Zoom, right? My whole interview was online. And the pandemic was hard. And if you look and see if you look at the major cities across the United States, there are so many superintendents that didn't make it through the pandemic. either by, board choice or their own choice. Some people retired early. The pandemic was hard, and
Yes,
trying
it
to
was.
maneuver, you know, 23,000 plus students, getting them back, well, supporting them in a remote environment, and then bringing them back in person in a city was very difficult. It wasn't impossible, certainly, but it was difficult. And but I have so many wonderful memories, positive memories of working in the Rochester City School District. I have, but I also have a lot of lessons learned, right,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that will take with me in whatever the next step is in my life. But, you know, people often, will define failure as a lack of success, or, your inability to meet an expectation. And certainly I would agree with that. But um, there's so many quotes out there and so many books that are written about you have to fail, right?
Mm.
Like, you have to experience failure,
Mhm.
or not quite hitting the mark, or being on it every single moment, because that's life, right? That's being human. And I think, again, for me, what made it so difficult is not meeting, expectations, and you know expectations are in the eye of the beholder as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
um but it played out in a public stage, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what made it so difficult for me, is that it was just so public, and that's what made it difficult. And because I have been so successful, this is my 30th year as an educator. I'm a
Wow.
decorated educator, right?
Yes.
I mean, I have led two school districts now, a small rural suburban district, and then a large urban district in the same county.
Mhm.
um, I've testified before Congress and asked them for 75 million, and gave they allocated 65 million, and it was the highest that they'd ever, to add more school counselors, right? I've been the president of a state association. I've won this award and that award. And so this situation has made me very humble, right?
Mm.
Incredibly humble and incredibly reflective. And I think that's an
Mhm.
important characteristic or trait that a leader has to have. And, sometimes you have to, quote unquote, learn it the hard way. Um, but I'm so grateful that I had this experience. And again, there are certainly some painful parts.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's all a part of my life path and my life journey. And as the gospel song says, I will not complain. I think the other thing that, when you have a chance to kind of step back and look at your life journey or your professional journey, it also opens up opportunities or possibilities for other things to happen. And as we started our conversation, both before we officially started recording and when we started recording, food is a huge part of who I
Mhm.
am and what I do. And my husband and I are actively looking for the right food truck, because we want to do a food truck in, hopefully, within the next year,
That's
because we both are
exciting.
really good cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And um I'm gonna, when I get off with you all, I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna bake cookies. Now that's something that I definitely need to ship off to you. Any
Oh,
kind of
you're so
cookie
sweet.
you can imagine, I can do. And I've created cookies. I've created a pina colada cookie. I've created a Life by Chocolate.
Oh, that sounds
I've
good. I
created
like that.
a rum raisin oatmeal cookie. Like, I just get into the kitchen, and it's like a laboratory for me. And I
Mhm.
just play around, and I'm a big Food Network junkie. I don't even need the news. If I just have the Food Network channel, I'm good. I'm good. Um, so I'll be making cookies, because this is what, again, I'm so honored. My mom was so philanthropic, and she was really a servant leader.
Mm.
She was known in the community. And my mom stopped going to school at 13. She dropped out to work so she could buy her first house at 14 or 15. And we
Wow.
still actually own that home
My
down in
gosh.
Atlantic City. So I've got courage and determination in my blood from both sides. But she would go out and solicit all these donations, and she was very supportive of the law enforcement community and very
Okay.
grateful for the role that they serve. And so tomorrow night, this is the first year my mom is not going to be
Right.
in attendance. And my sister and I are going to carry the tradition on of donating gifts and thanking law enforcement officers tomorrow night for the work that they do.
That's
So
Wow.
beautiful.
my sister bought, my mom was known for her purse, and she had everything in her purse. So my sister found these mini purses. So we bought 50 of them, and we're going to stuff it with cookies
I
and
love it.
mints and water and hand sanitizer. And we're going to present those to the law enforcement and first responders who are in attendance.
That is beautiful. Because you know what? As soon as you're in trouble, who do you call? And who responds?
Yeah.
Regardless of the political
Yeah.
climate, they're going to be there, and
Yep.
that is a beautiful
Exactly.
thing.
It was very, very sobering to me. I have a very good friend. He's literally like a brother, and he was one of the pallbearers at my mother's funeral. I hugged him several years ago, and as I hugged him, I could feel the bulletproof vest, and it was just so sobering to me. I was like, he
Mhm.
needs this,
Yeah.
right? For protection.
Yeah.
He needs, and it just, I kind of pulled back, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I've never felt a bulletproof vest before in my life." And so I thanked him for his service. And again, the next day or the next couple days, I made a ton of cookies and I donated them to the Brockport Police Department. I was the superintendent in Brockport at the time, just to
Mm.
thank them for what they do. So, what I have enjoyed during this time of just kind of being away from the public eye, and just, I'm really healing, because what I
Mhm.
realized is I didn't heal from my mother's passing. Like I said, I just went back to work. And so I'm eating clean, I'm working out, I'm cleaning my house, I'm doing all the things
Mhm.
that I just never had time to do. I get to be a full-time wife to my husband. He told me, though, he said, "I need you to go back to work because I'm getting fatter and fatter by the day because you're cooking too much food." But I'm enjoying just things that I just didn't have time to do. I'm really taking time, and I'm smelling the roses, like people say. And I mentored two administrators yesterday on the phone. One is
Oh,
going through a
great.
very difficult time on her job, and she wanted some advice. And another one finished her internship. She's a teacher, and applied for a position. And so I got to do that yesterday. I wouldn't
Yeah.
normally have time to really take genuine, meaningful time and help people problem solve and walk them through. And both of them reached out to me today to thank me. They said, "Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to meet with me." And that's something that I truly believe in, pouring into the next generation of
Mhm.
leaders. And you see all this gray hair. I'm doing that now more. I've crossed the threshold of, I still get mentored and I have mentors, but I do mentoring as well.
Mhm.
And that's something that really is important to me, is because people took time to work with me when I was so rough around the edges and so green, right? And didn't
Oh, all of
know
us. Yeah.
my head from my tail. So I'm very honored to have the opportunity to do that with folks.
Well, you've hit on a few things that we've talked about on the podcast, and that one of the things are life quakes, and those are those things that just like rock you
Mm,
to your core. And we've
yes.
talked about stacking, which really kind of hits with what you've shared with us. And thank you for sharing that with us. We're so sorry about your mother's passing, and that's those life quakes, the
Yeah.
things that just rock your very foundation. And the
Yeah.
stacking, you have what's going on in your career path that's also a
Yes.
life quake, but it's stacking one on top of the other. And then I'm sure
Yes.
there were other
Hmm.
things. You have children, so there, when your kids hurt, the mama hurts, and so you
Yes.
have those
Yeah.
things. And when you have all that happening, there's only so much of you. And so you can't give everything to the grieving process for yourself, for your children, for your family, for all those touched by your mom, the community. So you're trying to, we all put ourselves last as we help each other through it, but you also had to report to work and you're trying to get back there. And then that had its own thing. And you're trying to give that 100% to that, but you really can't do that.
Yes.
And now you have, children and a husband and other important people in your life that probably need you for something. And when all of that is happening at once, and we've talked about that on the podcast, that really, until you have the space, when in that space of it all, quote unquote, falling apart, actually gives you the chance to just breathe. And the space, like you shared, to reflect. And all of us, we like to say, we rise through. We don't rise above it, we rise through it. Because if you don't go through it, you're never actually dealing with it. So therefore, you can never actually heal from it. So what would you say is something, you talked about clean eating and the baking and time with your family, but for your own rising through, I heard you say reflection. What would you say when you're in that first space of like, holy crap, this all just fell apart? Like, what were some of those first things you did? Like, Nick and I have shared some of those like first things we did, and I know, like, for me, I remember, Nick and I have shared how we were there for each other at different points. And, at one of my low points, and he had just texted, how are you doing? And I was like, I am sitting in the silence and I've been laying on the floor for 2 hours. And he's like, okay, sounds about right. Take the day. I'm like, I'm just having this existential day. He goes, then have an existential day. Just take it in, because we haven't had that space. We didn't have any space to process. So like we've just shared some of those things. So I don't know, like, and only if you want to, certainly, but like when you were just like, what just happened? What were some of those first things that you would say, for you were the steps you took to heal you, that other people might have gone like, oh man, I hope Leslie's okay. But you're like, I'm in this space of figuring it out. What did that look like?
Mm-hmm. So I'm a deep person of faith. And so I did a lot of praying, and I still am a lot of praying. And then, because, and I think people have a misunderstanding about what prayer is. People think you have to be super eloquent and have therefores and thou arts.
Right.
A prayer is like, God, I'm really jacked up right now and I need you to help me. I need you to hear my words. I'm hurting. I'm angry. I'm confused. I feel abandoned and lost. I feel like I'm in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? Gethsemane. I have a hard time.
That is a tough word.
I feel alone and I just need you to hear me. I need you to help me. That is a prayer.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's not this beautiful, it can be, but people think it's only a certain way. And so I did crying. Music is another huge part of my life. So I played gospel songs and jazz songs and Public Enemy and there was a song, I don't want to say it, but it's like pretty graphic, and it talks about being a bad.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Trust me.
Right?
That was a great song. Like, I know the song you're talking about. It's a great song.
Yeah, we just did a podcast. So Leslie, you might not know this. We just did a podcast about, we each shared our top 10 songs. It was called Toast and Jams.
Yeah.
And it was music that we're grateful the artists made. And we did that before Thanksgiving. And what we shared was these were our top 10 that got us through that roughest period of time. Yep. And I know for me, I said, I have some Jesus songs on there. I have Rescue from Lauren Daigle all the way to Lizzo. Yeah. So, we were like, like, look, it does, those are the things, and so I don't know if you like some of the songs you were saying like that. And we've already had people reach out saying, yeah, I had this song or I had that song or, oh, that one was one of mine too. I had Pitbull on my list,
Yeah. They're just, music really is just so powerful. I'm a classically trained bassoonist.
No way, really? That's so cool. Yeah,
I am. So I was supposed to go to Eastman, but that's another podcast of what you people wanted you to do, but you didn't.
Awesome. So you're coming back. Look, we've already booked Lesli Myers-Small for a second show. All right. Winning.
Yeah, we could do the B-52 shot and talk about that. Right? On location. I'm in.
I love it.
Okay.
Yes, there we go.
This is how we go. This is how we make things
So
happen.
prayer, songs. I tore my Achilles 3 times, 3 months
Oh,
in a row, so I can't run
Oh,
anymore. But I love to walk, and where I live, I can get to the canal in less than 5 minutes, so I can walk that, or I'll go to I grew up in Pittsford, so Powder Mill Park, or
oh,
I'll
powder
go to
mill.
I like to commune with nature. That
Mm-hmm.
that that works for me. The other thing, and I know people can relate to this. Um, is it the Bush's Beans commercial where he tells the secret and he tells the dog, you
Dog.
can't,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yep.
My dog is sitting right here. Her name's China. I have 3, but China's up here. She's the pit bull. She has so many confidential, top secret. She has so much information because I'll look at her. I'm like, listen, let me tell you what happened today. I was in executive session and blah blah blah. I pour my heart out to my doggy.
Yep.
Um, or Coco and Chanel. Dogs are
That's
and they're
great.
so intuitive. They are
Mm-hmm.
so intuitive. So
Yeah,
when
they
I
are.
was crying, literally, I don't like to be licked, but they'll come up to China would come up to me, or Coco or Chanel, and they would literally lick the tears from my face.
Aw.
Yeah.
Or they would just look at me, and the Chihuahuas are obviously small dogs. They would get behind me and they would act like a what do you call it, a heating blanket, and just lay across my lower back and warm me up,
Mm-hmm.
or get next to me, get under the covers. So dogs have are a woman's best friend. And my dogs were really therapeutic.
And
My
sometimes in those,
husband, very,
yeah.
very supportive. He is very supportive of me and my career choices. He can also be a little bit of a chauvinist. So what he would do, he would say, well, you're going to be upset about this. I told you. That's why we'll never have a female president. And that would just get me. I was like, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. And then that would get me back.
Get
It
the
sounds
fire
like he knows how
going.
to motivate you.
He does. He does. 2 weeks ago, we went and saw Cat Williams. I love laughter, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
comedians, and my husband is a comedian. He is very funny. He can imitate anybody, anybody, anybody. Everything from what's his name, Bernie Mac, to Donald Trump, in between. He can imitate, yeah. So he makes me laugh, and the Bible talks about laughter is like medicine to the soul,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And
There is.
that's in the Old Testament, I believe. And so I had some moments, and cooking was a stress reliever. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I'm stressed if I'm just making these gourmet meals and making all these desserts. My husband be like, "Oh Lord, what happened today? You're in the kitchen." So
But it's true.
but
Cooking
I
is
think
such
just
a
the last thing
catharsis,
is,
and it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
huh?
I say cooking is such a. It's not only cathartic,
Cooking is cathartic for me.
but it's
Yeah.
creative. When you do hard
Yeah.
work all day and you're dealing with people, to do something
Yeah.
creative just feels so
Yeah.
good. And when you're
That
done, you
I'm
look
in
at it, you're like,
control of.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
That I'm in control of, right? Like I
Yep.
can create the outcome, right? I
Yeah.
create the amount of heat, the stirring, the ingredients, right? The way it comes together.
And there's no
And
committee to
I love to
consult.
do it.
And I don't have to listen to anybody's
No,
committee or shared
no.
decision
Hey,
making. If I want more chocolate chips, they're going in, God damn it.
that's right. That's right.
I think
So
that's why we do the podcast. To be honest, Leslie, that's like
Yeah.
our like creative. Well, I don't know
I
about
love
Margie. I shouldn't speak for you, but for me, it's
I'm
very
nodding
much
my
a
head.
creative. Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I love one of the things that I love is like the spontaneity of what we do on the podcast, and so
I love this.
I mean, I think that I feel like you're a family member, and I think you
I
should just
know.
like be a permanent fixture on Toasted.
Yep.
So
Sign me
Yeah.
up.
Yay.
Honestly,
I
sign
wanna-
me up.
I want to say something though about music because I'm a musician, and
Okay.
I think one of the things that you started with that gospel song, and
Yeah.
something occurred to me while you were talking about it is like I talk a lot about say it out loud, right? Whatever the hell's bothering you, say it out loud,
Yeah.
and that's really hard to do, right? Like to come out and just say like my entire life's falling apart. I feel like crap, right? Like that's a hard thing to say. But when you sing a song, those lyrics are somebody else's, but they're yours too. Because when you're saying it, you're owning it, right? And so
Yes.
you
That's
are
right.
saying
Yep.
it out loud. And so it becomes part of like your own vernacular. And
Right.
and it is your admission of like, yeah, I identify with this and I don't have to say it. I don't have to say my life's bad, but I'm saying it
Right.
to myself, you know? And so I think that's one of the
Right.
powerful things about music that maybe I've never really connected those dots for myself
Agreed.
in that way. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Music is so healing and
Mm-hmm.
so powerful, and it cuts across all the demographic. It cuts across race and or ethnicity. Like there are just songs that are just there that are healing. There, and if you think about it, why do you think that music was incorporated into the military back in the day? My dad was served in the Korean War.
Oh,
And he
wow.
played in the military band. It was to
Ah.
encourage. It was to
Mhm.
get the troops, excited and going.
Right.
So music is very, very powerful, incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. And in every culture, in every way, in every, I
Yes.
mean, it's just a fascinating thing. So now, how did a girl from Massachusetts get to Rochester, New York? And then how did she meet a guy from Louisiana via Chicago, if I was listening correctly?
Oh my God.
Ah!
You are gonna have to you're gonna have to have me back on because
We already are.
this
So now we got this is a whole other, this is number
this
3 we're talking now.
story, our love story. I've known my husband since July 6, 1987.
Really?
That
Oh my
was
gosh.
that was his 18th birthday. I was a
Okay.
pre-fosh at the University of Rochester. I was playing Monopoly in the hallway. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest.
I
He
love it.
kept on walking back and forth and back. I was playing Monopoly with my girlfriends. After about the third or fourth time, I was like, listen, dude, you got to stop walking back and forth. He kept on. He came by a couple more times and he was like, hey, listen, today's my birthday. Why don't you come and have a piece of birthday cake with you? I was like, I don't know you. I don't believe you. And no. I said, show me. I said, show me your license. Show me your license.
I need data and evidence.
So he pulls
love
out
it.
his license
My
and
God,
it says
Lesli.
July 6, 1969. I was like, oh my God, you're really 18 today. He was like, yeah. So I went up and had birthday cake with me. We were inseparable.
Aww.
So we dated the rest of the summer. He went back home to Chicago like in August. And then he went to college down at Tuskegee, which is a historically Black college in Alabama. We dated freshman year and a little bit of sophomore year. And he loves to tell the story that I sent him a Dear John letter saying, no, I'm dating the captain of the football team. I don't want you anymore. And he told me, he said, I can't be your friend. I am a very jealous person. And I can't see you dating other people. So we just have to stop talking. So it wasn't a bad breakup. It was just cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
22 years went by with no conversation, no letters, no talking, no pigeons, nothing. And I found him on Facebook. This is him calling me now. I found him on Facebook and I wrote him. We started talking on Facebook. Then we elevated to the phone. He took a visit up. He had just been divorced. And when he came to visit and I put him back on the plane, he turned around and said, I know this might sound cliche, but I still love you. And then got on the plane and left me sitting there at the airport. I was like, no. You got come here.
He did it all right. He did it all right? He knew exactly what he was doing. I love this guy.
And walked off. He was like, I love you. And then walked off. And that's all she wrote. He moved. He packed everything he owned in his truck, and he came up here, and we literally are best friends. And the biggest compliment that my bonus daughter, I don't call them my stepchildren, I call them my bonus children. My bonus daughter, who's 18, said, I love to see you and Dad together. Like, it took me a while to get, understand that Mom and Dad weren't gonna work, because they don't work, but you and Dad work. Like, you guys love each other. And she said, but the bottom line is you guys are best friends, and that is so cool to see. And she said, that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And it just did something to me. I was like, that we live our lives in such a way that our my bonus daughter can see I love her dad, and I love them like they're my own, but it just is a very He's my best friend. He's my bodyguard. He's my personal chef. He's my
Aw.
heckler. He's everything, and I love him so much. I'm so grateful to Randy. He doesn't want me to say his middle name, Stephen Small. He is my best friend.
Oh,
Yep.
well.
So you did just say his middle name. Just I want to.
I did.
Okay.
Yep. I purposely did that. He's
All
like,
right.
"Don't say my middle name."
That's so
You're
funny.
fine.
Well,
It's a
Randy,
nice middle name.
Stephen,
It's
Small, we're so glad to know the story, and we're so glad that that's such a great story. That's
Yeah.
inspiring. So
Monopoly.
Monopoly,
Ah.
Monopoly,
We met
Monopoly
over
birthday
Monopoly.
cake. Yep. And he knew what he was getting
Yep.
into, and
We
you were like, "I
are
don't believe you.
renewing
Show
our
me the
vows.
license."
Yes. I was like, no, I don't know. He was like, you had some hoofs, but you were like, show me your license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
But there's two kinds of people in the world. There's the people who play Monopoly, and there's the people who interrupt Monopoly. So it is interesting. Right, when I play Monopoly, like it gets serious.
It does get serious.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were serious in the game. So I was just like, why are you walking back?
Yeah,
and
no, I
forth?
get it.
You know, come on, man.
Yeah. But that's probably why it works, maybe, because you're like you're those people. So really what we should do is invent a dating app. Like we'll screen you, and if you play Monopoly, you're one
There you
type of
go.
person, and the other type of people interrupt Monopoly, and then we'll put them together.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I don't feel like I should be on a matchmaking anything. So
No, don't do that.
Oh, that was an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that. We love that. That is so now. So the U of
Yeah.
And
R.
here's
That's
the
how
cool
you.
part. Here's the cool part. I got married for the first time at 49 years old. I'd never been married.
Hmm.
I never had any children. So I always tell women, or or men, but women in particular, do not rush to get married. Like God will give you the desires of your heart. I am a firm believer in that. And even though I kissed a couple frogs, I finally got a prince. And I'm so glad that I didn't, marry some of those other people. Oh no, I have my, if you want to call it soulmate, my life partner. And so I am so glad that I waited. And I got a lot of feedback. You should be married by now. What's going on? But I'm so glad I waited until the right person came around.
I love
Or
that.
came
awesome.
back around. Came back
Exactly.
around.
Yeah. He had to do his
Yeah.
journey too to be the person he was in order to be the right at the right time, the right place, the right spot, the right all
That's right.
those things need to converge and to be there. Well, you're inspiring. It makes me feel inspired. I'm like, okay, I feel inspired. I'm not going to be sad.
Don't be.
That's awesome. That is so great.
Yeah.
So you went. So the U of R is the reason you came from Massachusetts, or you said you grew up in Pittsburgh. So how did you move
Oh
from?
no, that's how I met Randy.
Oh,
How I got
okay.
from Massachusetts was Xerox. My dad was
Oh,
an
sure.
engineer,
Yep.
and back in the mid to late 70s, they the then president and CEO said we've got to hire the best and the brightest, but we need to diversify Xerox. We need to have ethnic and racial diversity. And so my dad was one of the engineers who were
Okay.
recruited. And that's how we moved here. And, my dad was like, I want the best school system. So they took him to two different towns, and we settled in Pittsburgh. And I grew up there from second grade on.
Oh, wow. Okay, so second
Graduated.
grade. Yeah, you're little. So you're
Yep.
really a
Mhm.
Rochester girl.
I feel like I am. I feel, yeah, I am.
Yeah, I'm a Rochester girl.
Definitely.
That's where I grew up. So I was on the opposite side. I was
Yeah.
I'm a West Sider though. So I'm a Grease girl. I'm a West Sider.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's awesome. That is wonderful. Was that difficult?
Yeah.
I mean, for those of us, those of you listening, excuse me, who aren't familiar, Pittsburgh is definitely an affluent east side of Rochester area. Was that difficult
Yeah.
growing up at that time? Because I can't imagine that there were a lot of African American families in Pittsburgh at that time.
It was. I can tell you all of the people. I could name for you on one hand the African American students who were in my grade level.
Mm-hmm.
and it was very difficult in the 70s.
Mm.
I was almost classified into special education because you see me, I'm talkative, I
Mhm.
get off task really easy.
You see us, we
And
kind
I
of do
was
that too.
Yeah, you fit right in.
I
You
was
work. It
considered
works.
to be disruptive, and if I didn't have parents who could advocate on my behalf, I would have been placed in special education. And so for me, that's why education is so being a educational leader is so important, because it's my
Mhm.
job to help advocate for those young people who might not have a parent to advocate on their behalf.
Right.
Mhm.
Or when you move up the ranks, you get to put policies and procedures in place that make it equitable for young people. That's
Mhm.
so important to me.
So
Yeah.
how did you decide on school counselor? What led you to be a school counselor? I didn't realize that was.
Oh my God, that's another podcast.
Margie likes to spring that last. We talked to Sean Nelms last week, and
Yeah.
the very last question Margie asked was how he became an educator. It's just like it's her ninja move.
So again,
That's why we're black.
like
I'm
it's
like, okay,
so I went to University of Rochester because there was a medical school. I was going to be Dr. Myers, whatever my last name was going to
Oh.
right. I was going to be Dr. Myers, MD.
okay.
And I studied pre-med through undergrad. I did anatomy and
Wow.
physiology. I was ready. And I just didn't want to do that. I just got to the MCATs, the SATs had scarred me so badly. I was like, no, I can't, I just cannot do this. So I was like, okay, now what? This is senior year, and I got to figure out, I'm a psych pre-med major. What am I going to do with that? U of R had a program called Fifth Year in Teaching and Counseling.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know that at the time. And so my parents treated me to a trip to the Bahamas. And I had a really good time, but I had bought a book called Gifted Hands by Dr. Ben Carson.
Oh
And that
my
should be a familiar
gosh.
name to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the first neurosurgeon to successfully separate Siamese twins. And so people can say what they want to say about him in the political arena, but I just had so much respect for him. And I read the book and I had tears in my eyes, and I finished it. I was on the plane coming back. And this is a spiritual encounter I had. God, said, look at your hands. It's in the book. It's in you. And I just was like, okay, so what am I good at? And I was like, you know what? I'm good at talking to people, helping people get through their differences. I had to, at 9 or 10 years old, unfortunately, I had to even counsel my parents. There was alcohol abuse. My dad, unfortunately, had an issue with alcohol, and I would counsel my dad and say, okay, Dad, this is what Mom is upset about. Mom, I need you to listen to Dad. And I would mediate the neighborhood disagreements and things of that nature. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm good. I'm good at that. And so things kind of moved together. And I was like, I could be a school counselor or a school psychologist. So I did the 5th year in teaching, which waived my tuition at U of R.
Whoa.
That's
Paid
big.
for my
That's
master's
big.
degree. Paid for my master's degree, which I was so grateful for, because I had a little bit of debt from undergrad, but grad school master's was waived, but you had to do it in 3 semesters, so you had to double and triple up on
wow.
courses. And I excelled in that program. I loved it. I was like, and I was really good at being a school counselor. I really was. They would give me the kids that were the most difficult, the most challenging. And my job was as a high school counselor was to tell kids, you can do it and you are going to college. Like, so many of my scholars went off to college and finished. And so I loved that job, but that's what happened. I didn't go to medical school, so I was like, now what? And divine intervention and some reflection and meditation and school
But
counseling.
that's it right there.
That's
And
awesome.
so what I love is I'm wondering, at the time when you were like, this isn't what I want to do, was that feeling like a failure, but it really created the space for you to reflect,
Yeah.
meditate, pray, to realize like, wait,
Yes.
I'm good at this. Your superpower is what you lived
Right.
out and realized due to that,
Yes.
which is the
Yep.
whole point. Like our failure really
Yes.
is our superpower when we give ourselves the space
Yes.
to reflect and pray or meditate or
Yep.
rise through it, go through it and really say, okay, what is really this presenting to me? What is the
Yeah.
opportunity
Yes.
in this? And so we are that. So all think of all those students. Not that you wouldn't have impacted people positively should you have gone through your MD, but instead you are Dr. Lesli Myers-Small. You still have that with you, but instead it was
Yes.
in a different avenue. So you knew you wanted to do that, and there you are. So how long were you a school counselor? And see, that doesn't take 25 minutes to answer. So relax.
I was a school counselor for what, 8 years.
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
have to tell you that it gives me so much joy now when former students run into me. And actually, I was there. I don't know if you know Dr. Terry Orton,
Oh, I
who
know the
graduated
name.
from the
I know the name.
university. She
Yeah.
earned her doctorate
Yeah.
from the University of Rochester. I was Terry's high school counselor.
Oh,
And to
wow.
see her, she actually went to undergrad, then she became a school counselor. She said, you were so influential in that. And then I went on, and she, so I have two former students who used to work with me in central office. And I have so many former students that are principals and teachers and entrepreneurs and just doing their thing. And that's where I feel most proud, is that I have students who say to me, you just made a difference in my life. Thank you. You saved my life. You told me, you held me accountable. You held very high standards. You told me that I couldn't give up or that I couldn't quit, or that I wasn't a failure. And that's what gives me so much joy. That's like that was my report card, that I had students that would just come back after a year or 5 years. And I think the funniest thing that happened, I was in Wegmans, and this big guy just came and grabbed me and picked me up off the ground, and I was just like, okay. And you see this female in the background, like, who is this bleep? Who's, my clearly they were together, husband or girlfriend, boyfriend. I was like, oh my God. He was like, Miss Myers, it's me. And he was my first year in the district. I was his counselor.
Wow.
So this was 1993.
Yeah.
He
Impact.
said, I went to Marshall and I was on the football team, and I already had, I think he said the kid that I had when I was in high school is
Wow.
graduating from high school in 2 weeks with honors, and he's going off to college. And it's because of you. It's because of you. And so he's having this animated conversation, and this woman looks like she's about to beat me up. I was like, okay. And he was like, I'm sorry, honey, this is Miss Myers.
Yeah.
This is Miss Myers. She like literally saved my life. She was on my case every single day, and she didn't think I was listening, but I was. Those are the types of stories. When I get those, it just gives me joy. Either if I see them in person or they inbox me, they'll find me on Facebook or whatever. And when I became the superintendent of Rochester, I had so many former students just cheering me on and saying, finally, this is great. We're so happy for you. And then when that situation ended, they said, we're still proud of you and thank you for doing the job that you did. You had a very difficult and challenging role. And I couldn't believe how many students just were still supportive of me and just still encouraged me. And I got some encouragement from quite a few of them who reached out and said, you did the best that you could. You did a great job and we're proud of you. And that gives me joy.
Well, because that's the legacy. I mean, that's the legacy.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go on, and they're
Right.
going to impact from those lessons to their next generations, to the generations.
Exactly.
And that's the legacy.
Exactly.
And that's the victory. That's the superpower.
Yes.
Well, Dr.
That's right.
Myers-Small, we want to say cheers to you. And thank you so much for being on the show and for talking with us. We can't wait for part 2 about being a classically trained bassoonist. We're excited about that because you said that was the next one. So we are happy to, we'll be having you back, and we're going to be hopefully in person with these B-52s you've been talking about. We're excited. Nick and I are like, we're in.
Yes.
I'm in.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to being a professional cookie taster either, just for the record.
Okay.
I happen to have a pretty good palate.
You gonna take one for the team?
I can do that for you if you need somebody.
I love it.
We'll be over.
Yeah. Well, no, really. Thank you so very much for taking time to be with us, and it's been
you are welcome.
just a real pleasure. So.
It is. It means
My
so much
pleasure.
to us. And this was, like we said, we feel like we're family now. I'm like, oh, this is great. So
absolutely.
We're going to talk next week. This is awesome.
There's a saying. We are, Nick, you're a brother from another mother.
Yeah.
And Margie, you're a sister from another mister.
I love it. I love it. We are in. Cheers to our toasted family expanding. Yes. This is great.
Yes.
I was just waiting for another Rocky Mountain caviar comment to come up. So. All right.
That is awesome. So we're going to have to do some kind of a special culinary episode. So we have the bassoonist one, and then we're going to have a culinary episode because Nick is also an excellent cook.
That.
I love to cook. So we are foodies. We both love doing that. So this would be very fun to do that. We'll have to do something fun with that. So we know for sure you're coming back twice, and we'll get that, and it'll be awesome.
We're in.
All right. So we always end by saying cheers. So raise a glass. And cheers.
Cheers. Here, here.
Here, here.
Thank
you.
Awesome.
We'll see you soon.
You're welcome. So I've got to show you before we go off. I got to show you the B-50. This is incredible. This is a B-52 shot.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, we're definitely in.
So Kahlua, Bailey's, Grand Marnier.
All right. So next time, folks, we are going to be doing those. Toasted, the podcast.
Here's my husband cheering with me.
Oh, hey, Randy Steven.
He's going to kill me, but it's okay.
He can come on the show too. He just needs a separate he needs a separate camera. So
there you go.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
All right.
We'll make it happen.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.